Thanks very much. I'm closer to you than usual today. Did you notice? There's, a separate shrine set up behind us today. So I figured that this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. And so that's why I asked if I could sit in front of it so that I could talk a little bit about what we did here yesterday and what happened, and so people can get a sense of what it's like to be in retreat. And so I thought that I would give today's talk, a nice title. So I called it After Retreat, the Laundry. Because we have to mix two things when we're meditators. When we practice spiritual life, we have to mix two things. We have to mix our everyday experience with our spiritual experience. And not everybody can do this. And some folks feel like they have to have their spiritual life on this side and their daily life on this side, and somehow they don't match. Or that one, or worse yet, one is at war with the other one. This actually happened once. I had a person come to the question microphone during the question period, and they said, now, if it just weren't for my family, I could be a good meditator. Oh, that cracked me up. I've never been a mom, so I don't know for sure, But for this guy, being a dad, stay-at-home dad, it was just a lot. It's like, how can I put this? It's like wall-to-wall family responsibility day in and day out. He felt like he couldn't be a spiritual person with his day in and day out reality. So I kind of chuckled a bit to myself, but then I answered and I said that I talked about this idea that we sometimes put an invisible, sometimes it's invisible, sometimes it's not invisible. We put an invisible line between our practice, meditation practice, and our daily life, and we have to find a way to merge them. And so, in a way, that's what I'm going to talk about today, is why it's good to merge these, and the occasions when we can merge these, and how, and so forth and so on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we begin, it is customary to begin a Buddhist teaching with a prayer, and the prayer we're going to do here is this refuge prayer that's on one side of the sheet. And this center was founded by a Tibetan monk, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, and it was founded in the 1970s. Do you know we're going to have our 50th anniversary in 2027? That's like, what? Anyway, not that I was there, but I was there. Anyway, but in any case, he wanted us to do everything in Tibetan, but as he got older, he said, well, yeah, it's important to know the meaning of your words. So what I'll do is we'll recite this twice together in English, and then we'll go for it in Tibetan, just one time through. And you think that by reciting this, that you're dedicating this next period of time that we're going to spend together to the benefit of yourself and all the beings in this world who are suffering right now. We're dedicating this to all beings. We'll start with the words in the Buddha. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Okay, I'll try it in Tibetan now. O Sanje Chudan Soji Chonamla Jang Chu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Daji Jinso Jibe Sunam Ki Drola Pinshir Sanjay Druparsho. Okay, I'll start with a short prayer of my own, and then we'll begin. Oh, Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dagi Chiwar Pede Ten Shula, Kadrin Jembo Gorne Je Sonte, Kusum Tuging Udrup Sal Du So. Okay, very good. So I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, but would you mind just like doing 2 minutes of meditation with me? Because we've had a busy morning. I heard about the cleanup in aisle 2, down that we had a little, we had a coffee spill down in the in the community room. Anyway, so I think it would be great if we could just spend about 2 minutes in silence. So you can use for the next 2 minutes whatever meditation method. Silent meditation method you like, and we'll sit quietly just for a couple of minutes to give us a little brain break before the talk. Now, before we move on, let's take a moment to be with the experience of having meditated. And one of my teachers said, one of the best ways to move into merging practice with everyday life is it starts on the meditation seat. He said, when you finish your meditation and you begin to arise from the meditation, just like you're arising from sleep in the morning. He said it's really good if you can just arise from your meditation very slowly and gently. He said almost as though you're trying to momentarily, at least for just a moment or two, maintain the experience of being in a relaxed and aware state. Relaxed and aware state as you arise from the meditation. And then you can begin to relate to what is around you. But he said just take a moment to just feel your body on the meditation seat. And if your eyes were closed, to open them gently. And he said, don't pop up from your meditation seat like, oh, I gotta go do something. Don't pop up. He said, don't be impulsive. He said, take your time and arise from the meditation gently and slowly. And as you arise from the meditation in this way, what happens is that you begin to gradually mix your meditation with your next activity, whatever your next activity is going to be. And I loved that approach, which is why I wanted to try it right here, right now, today, and to give you a flavor for what that might be like. What that might be like to arise from meditation in a considered, gentle, conscious way. And what this does is it shows you that the two states, the meditative state and the everyday mind state, are not that far apart from each other. They're not that far apart from each other. One of my teachers even said that the Buddha mind is with you always. Your Buddha nature is with you always. But because we don't know the methods for developing and nurturing an awareness of our Buddha nature, we feel that it's separate from us, that Buddha is somehow far away, and we're here in our confusion and suffering, and the Buddha is somehow over there somewhere. And that we have to get to that Buddha over there somewhere. But really, it's right here in our own experience of this present moment of awareness. It's present. And all we need is a reminder to return to that basic awareness. Just return to it again and again and again, and see how that basic awareness is the underpinning of all our experience. If it weren't for this basic mind that can know, that can experience, if it were not for this basic aware experiential mind, we wouldn't know anything. We wouldn't have any experience if it weren't for this amazing mind. And so the idea that I want to introduce about this mixing of the spiritual with the everyday is because since this awareness is with us always, one of my teachers said it's with you when you are awake, it's with you when you are asleep, it's with you when you are in a stupor. This basic awareness is with you always. And so it allows us to experience and know everything. So it's something that we're able to use and experience in a moment-to-moment, day-to-day kind of way. So that's this mind that we have. That's the mind that we have right here, right now, today. We have that mind. We have Buddha mind right here, right now, today. And if we can gradually relax into mind's natural awareness over and over again, we'll see that it's available to us always. So one of my teachers said, you can take little meditation breaks during your day at work. And it's like you don't have to close the door or go away or go outside, but if you need to do that, it helps, But he said there can be a moment where you just allow your mind to rest. He said, let your mind, he actually used the word, his translator used the word flop, F-L-O-P, flop or drop. Just let your mind flop. He said, like you're flopping into a comfortable chair when you're tired. Just just like you're now in a place of ease. And then he said, when you do that, he said, your mind is quiet for a few moments. Your mind is quiet for just a few moments. And then he said, when your mind gets busy again, which inevitably it will do, because that's the state we're used to operating in. We're used to operating in that state all day, every day. It's how we are, quote unquote, productive and all of that. It's that way we usually are. He said, when it returns, he said, you can just mentally offer the practice you just did of 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds to all beings who suffer. And in that way, he said, you can meditate off and on even during your regular day, which I thought is really useful, because a lot of people think you need special equipment to meditate. It's nice to have the special cushions and it's nice to have the special chair, but it's not 100% necessary, because you've got the equipment for your meditation is right here in your person, right here, right now, today. You've got that. You've got all your meditation equipment present. And it just matters that you learn the technique. So learning the technique is the key piece, just allowing the mind to rest. And then when you let the mind rest in meditation, when you're doing your regular everyday meditation practice, you have some kind of object for your meditation, like your attention. Like you could be aware of your breath, or you could be aware of a physical object you've got in front of you. Or you could be aware of a sound, like we have the fan is running right now for our ventilating system. So you can be aware of anything. But your attention will not stay very long, because we're used to our attention roving all over the world. It'll either rove around in what we're doing right now, or it'll rove into the past, thinking about things that happened in the past. It'll rove into the future, stuff that might happen tomorrow. And we're not here, present in this moment. And so the object of the meditation is to come back to right here, right now. And being there, right here, right now, with your mind, and making your mind into a friend and an ally. A lot of people tell me their mind is not always their friend. That sometimes they have troubling thoughts, that sometimes they have mental pain. But they're learning the methods of meditation can sometimes help with that. And so if we can figure out how to make our mind a friend, that's a good thing. And one of the ways to do that is by turning the mind to an object of attention, and then just letting the mind rest there. Without tension, without thinking, I can't let this object of attention go. Oh no, we're not like, it's not like we're holding an egg, because we're not doing that. We have to have a gentle attention to our object. I was reading one of my teacher's explanations the other day to a friend of mine who was getting headaches from meditating. They were pushing so hard on their mind. They were pushing so hard on their mind to focus, that they were getting a headache. And so what I told him was, I shared this instruction from my teacher, where you just let the mind relax and expand, in the object of that you're using. Just let it relax and expand. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is that, again, because we usually at first put meditation over here and daily life over here, and we can't mix them. So these are little ways that you can mix them on a day-to-day basis in your average day. But then there are special situations. There are special situations where you can be with your meditation for an extended period of time. And we did one of those yesterday. The shrine that you see behind me was prepared for a special compassion mantra retreat that we did yesterday. We had 13 intrepid travelers. I'm calling them travelers. That's a little bit of a joke. We had 13 intrepid meditators who participated. I think I see a couple of you here today, so thanks for being here. And the practice began at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, we decided to do a kind of a revised monastery schedule, because if we did an actual monastery schedule, we would have started at 5. Yeah, I'm just saying. But because you got old people running this retreat, we started at 6:30. So anyhow, and then we went from 6:30 until a little bit before, about 11:30. But there were breaks, and we got up and walked around, and we took just a few tea breaks and that kind of thing. But we were chanting pretty much the whole time. And we were either chanting the words of the prayers that were in our retreat booklet, or we were saying one of the one of the 3 mantras of Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of Compassion. The long one is a little bit ponderous. What do you guys think? I see 2 people from behind. How was that mantra? That was a little long, wasn't it? Namo Ratnatraya, Namo Arya. I know. Anyhow, Sagarabhiratsana, Bayuha, Razaya, Tathagaya, Arhate, Savyasa, Buddhya, Teata. See, I always forgot the next phrase after that. Namo Sarvata Gate. Anyway, so it's very long. But even the medium one, Namo Ratnatraya. Oh, never mind. Anyway, Teata, Yilimili, Titi, Gala. Anyway, it's a long one. And so it's much easier to do Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6-syllable mantra, it's got it all. Because each of the syllables counteracts one of human beings' primary mental afflictions. Om Mani Padme Hum, right? So Om counteracts pride that ends up with arrogance and all the pain and suffering that comes about because of that. Then there's jealousy and all the pain and suffering that comes up from that. So the Om is counteracting pride. The Ma is counteracting jealousy. The Ni is counteracting attachment. Pe is ignorance. Me is miserliness, and Hung is hatred. So when you say this mantra, you're making your effort to counteract 6 primary human mental poisons. And by reciting this, you're reciting essentially the name of Chenrezig, because he's often known as Padma Pani. Padma means the lotus. And he's seen as holding a lotus flower, which is indicative of his compassion. And in his other hands, he's holding a wish-fulfilling jewel, which is symbolic of Buddha nature. And so he's the one who holds the jewel and holds the lotus. So they call him by that name, Mani Padme. And Om has to do with the enlightened body of the Buddha, and Hung is the enlightened mind of the Buddha. So Om Mani Padme Hung is a way of saying Chenrezig's name. And so it's a name mantra. Many of the mantras that the Buddha gave in his teachings were name mantras, naming the Buddhas and naming the Bodhisattvas. So we did a lot of that. We did, I think maybe, I'm going to say that in the whole day, we probably did an hour of mantra meditation. I could be off on that. But we also practiced we were temporary monks and nuns for a day, where we practiced only eating one meal, the noon meal. And we had a great meal, by the way. So we thank all the people who fed us yesterday. And then after the 1 noon meal, we were to fast from food until the next morning. But we could drink liquids and this sort of thing, so we did that until the evening. But we finished here around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we were really tired. But one of the people who was participating said it was really interesting to go home after having been in retreat for a day. Things look different, and the idea is that when you think about it, you have food there, so you want to eat, right? But you're like, no, wait a minute, I'm not doing that tonight. I'm doing something different tonight. And you think about how automatic and how automatic things about your life are, and your activities and the thing you do and the things you just do automatically without even thinking about them. And so this is one of the functions of retreat, to bring these things you don't think about into your awareness and ask you to ask yourself the question, what is my relationship to this? I have a Christian friend who fasts every week. I forget whether it's a whole day fast or if it's a half day or whatever. But he said, you really come to understand your relationship with food and how your mind is around issues of eating and food. And he says, you don't really even think about this. He says, but it's good to think about it. It's good to see, how much of your I love it, because for a Christian guy, he sounds pretty Buddhist to me, right? How much of your mental energy is taken up thinking about, well, I'm going to eat. How much of your brain is taken up by it. And liking this and disliking that and all this sort of thing. So this is a little bit about the retreat we did yesterday, where we took ourselves out of our everyday reality and put ourselves on a monastic schedule, doing a monastic discipline. And by the way, we were supposed to keep very strict vows of not killing, not stealing, not lying, which means you couldn't even make a joke of the kind that's exaggeration. Where there's technically a lie inside the joke, and the joke is funny because it's a lie. So you had to really watch your brain. You had to really watch what you said, and you don't think about what you say very often. You don't really watch what you say very often, but having to watch it, that's different. And it's again this merging of your everyday experience with your spiritual life. And I tell people who ask me about the 3-year retreat that we did in upstate New York, Lama Adam, Lama Tom, and I, we all went to the same school, but at different times. We did a 3-year retreat in upstate New York. And people ask me about it, how was it? And I gotta say, I had a great time, but that's because I bring a weird sense of humor to everything I do. I had a picture of the Marx Brothers. No, not the Marx Brothers. The Three Stooges on the door to my retreat room. So I think you can kind of see where we're going here. Next to my switch plate, I had a picture of Doctor Who. So it's all good. It's all good. But in any case, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Anyhow, but the retreat room is only 10 by 10. The retreat room is 10 by 10, so you have to kind of get used to that. So in any case, but what I told people was, you go into retreat so that you have some time to just really be with your spiritual practice. So it's like all the people who did the retreat yesterday, they took some time away from their usual everyday affairs, and they just were here for this retreat. They did this retreat. And they took themselves out of their environment for several hours, and then they had fun reintroducing themselves to their reality at the end of the day. And one of the younger participants said, can I go home and watch TV? And it's like, it'd be great if you didn't, if you just kind of let your mind be at rest for the rest of the day and didn't distract yourself from your mind and didn't distract yourself from the mantras. You could do mantras all evening if you wanted to. So you get the idea. You get the idea. And so what I tell people is you go into retreat so that you can come out again. You go in so you can come out. And hopefully you will come out a little different than you were when you went in, because you will have had that opportunity to spend time with your mind. So it's like that. So that's a little bit about what we did on the weekend. And there's something else about the retreat, and that is, you might think, well, I could never do that. I could never do that kind of practice. That's too much for me. That would be much too much for me. And I'm remembering something that my teacher told us a long time ago. He said, it's said in the Buddhist teachings that if you take even 7 steps toward a place of retreat with the intention, I'm going to sit and benefit beings, I'm going to sit and meditate and benefit beings. He says, if you take even 7 steps toward a place of retreat, even if you never get there, then he said that's really, really meritorious. It's a wonderful thing. And so that's something you can think about and make maybe a mental aspiration in your mind to do a retreat. Now, I gotta confess, fasting is not for everyone. And we only did a modified fasting retreat. If you do this retreat as a 2-day retreat, the second day you don't eat at all. And in fact, you have nothing to drink at all. And so it's strenuous and difficult. And people say, well, why cause yourself that kind of hardship? And the answer is because we don't understand the suffering of other people. We don't understand the suffering that other people go through. We don't. We just don't. We may see other people, but we may think, oh, well, that's not me, Like, that person has this problem, that person has this problem, but that's not me. I'm okay. But we need to be aware of the suffering of other people and other creatures too. Other creatures too, because other creatures that are living in this world with us, they suffer intensely. And so these mild hardships that we undergo in these retreats are mild compared to what others go through. But it makes us aware, and it makes us compassionate toward ourselves, and it makes us a little more compassionate toward others. So, even just a little more compassion, good thing for this world right now, because we need a world that's got some. People have been talking to me for many weeks about, the wars going on in the world, and that they're very upset about the wars that are going on in the world, And so as a result of all of these wars that are going on in the world, they're very worried, Maybe the world's going to explode, And one of the things we did yesterday was one of the practices we did yesterday was to imagine that the blessings of love and compassion go throughout the world. We just make the aspiration that they go throughout the whole world, and that it changes the hearts and minds of everyone in the world. Now, did it really work? No. It didn't stop the wars. It didn't stop the unkindness that people show to each other. But it changed our mind just a little bit. And that's the idea. Retreat changes our mind just a little bit so that when we come out of that retreat, we're different than when we went in. And so it's my hope that just this little talk about retreat will give you some inspiration to do a little bit of retreat at your home. Take some time from time to time, and just turn off everything. And just turn off all the entertainment, turn off all the noise in your heart and your mind, and just be with yourself for half an hour or an hour, and make the aspiration that benefits you and others. So it's a little bit like that. I want to let everybody know that if you stay behind today, I'll give a little tour of the shrine and explain a little bit more about the retreat, because it might not be interesting for everybody, but some folks might have an interest. And there is a vase of water on this shrine that everybody was empowering yesterday with their mantra. They were visualizing that the Bodhisattva of compassion sent light and love and healing into that vase, and that it went out and it helped all those who are in the world who are suffering from hunger and thirst and deprivation. And so hopefully it will have some blessing for people. And so in any case, it's something to think about. And it turns out, it looks to me like I did not write a full talk today. So we may have to stop a little early. This happens. But we also could have a discussion, because I see we do have the question microphones. So if people have questions or thoughts they'd like to share. Yeah.
I thank you for your talk, Lama Kathy.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So confession, I do not do much sitting meditation, but I really like to do yoga and try to have intention and try to draw my mind back. Would that be considered cheating? Since I'm not sitting on, my pillow or anything.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'll tell you what, there's other ways you can cheat. If that's cheating, there's other ways you can cheat. I'll tell you what, last week I talked about being part of the brain studies at Princeton, and what we ended up doing was we ended up talking about the types of meditation. And one of the researchers said, well, do Tibetans sit in caves and meditate all day long? And he said, I've never heard of or seen anybody doing that. And I said, he said, yeah, I don't know, let me go ask my teacher. And my teacher said, oh, they're all doing mantra. So the folks who were here yesterday reciting all these mantras, they're doing a form of shamatha meditation. So it is not outside the realm of possibility that doing yoga also could be a form of shamatha meditation, especially if you're attentive to your posture and whatnot. But it would also be good for you to do some mantra meditation, because mantra meditation in that way, it's not kinesthetic in that it's your body movement, but you can do, what the mantra meditation does is, it's so funny, because I was just, I brought 2 books in with me today, because they were the 2 books I was using today. I teach, frequently I teach the Great Path of Awakening, the Lojong mind training book. But today, I was working with someone who's working through this book, The Single Sufficient Virtue. It's a very, you can see it's really a big book. And it's about Mahamudra meditation. And we had some fun today talking about what deity practice does for you. And I'm just going to read to you, what it says here. He says, when you form the image of a Buddha or Bodhisattva in your mind, you identify it with yourself, because that's part of how you do mantra meditation, is by thinking that instead of this ordinary body that we have a body that's made of light, empty inside, but made of light. He said you identify that form with your body, but it's actually your mind, your awareness taking that shape. This brings up the issue of whether the mind that imagines the form of the Buddha and the Buddha itself are two different things. It's like the sun and the sun's light. We can, in speaking about them, isolate one from the other. We can talk about the sun over here and sunlight separately, but in reality, they're not two different things. In the same way, the image of the Buddha in your mind is your mind appearing that way. Therefore, your mind and the Buddha are inseparable, which means that the Buddha that you're meditating on embodies, exhibits, and demonstrates all the attributes of your mind, and therefore is, in the form of that image, the manifest awakening of the Buddha. It's the Buddha's body, the Buddha's speech, and the Buddha's mind, which I just thought that was just like, wow, you know. And so what he's saying, he says, you do this kind of meditation so that you can begin to lessen your fixation on the body and speech and mind as being mundane, and try on. You're sort of trying on for size. You're trying on for size the idea that mind and so forth are awareness and emptiness. You know, the idea that your mind and all things are they have this basically pure nature, and by meditating like that, he said, eventually you see that all phenomena that arise in your mind are like that. So I think that if you want to cheat a little, and sitting meditation is not your thing, then I would sit and do a very simple Chenrezig meditation, where you imagine that Chenrezig is above your head, and you pray to Chenrezig for his blessing. You imagine that he blesses you and purifies you, and that you become Chenrezig. And then you recite Om Mani Padme Hum, like that. Khenpo Rinpoche, my teacher, basically said, you can do Chenrezig practice without an empowerment. He said, yes, I know that you know, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition does tend to require these things, taking refuge and, you know, and empowerments and so on. He said, but he said, you can just do the practice. He said, because it's so beneficial that it won't hurt you in any way, shape, or form. So. Okay, no, thanks for asking about that. Yeah. Anybody else have questions, comments? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Yeah.
When it comes to mantra, in my practice, when I'm sitting, I will continue the flow of the mantra while breathing in and out. Rather than stopping, taking a breath.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any problem with that?
You know, that question actually got asked once, and I don't remember the answer, so I can't say it with authority. Ah, darn it. Because somebody actually did ask Rinpoche that question.
Right on, okay. Thank you. So it wasn't a far-out question.
No, it's not a far-out question at all. See, this is the thing about questions. Any question that you might have, somebody has had it, and you know, and usually it's people in the same room will also have the same question. It's invariable that happens. That one person comes to ask a question, there's like maybe 2 or 3 other people who have the same. But that is a really fascinating question, and I know it's been asked, but I'm sorry I don't know the answer. I can ask Rinpoche's nephew if send me an email, and I'll ask Rinpoche's nephew, because I think he might have been around when that question got asked. Because I kind of feel it's okay, but I also want to caution people to be very careful, because when people do things that affect their breathing, it can also affect their mind. You know, so I can't go too much further than that. But yeah, but it's a fascinating question. Write me an email, and I'll see if I can sleuth out an answer for you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no thanks. Anybody else? Oh, we got one. Okay, yeah.
Feels odd to walk away from you
I
to
know,
ask
it's
you a
weird, isn't
question.
it? I know, it's weird. Well, it's one of those things where we had to set it up this way, and because I asked them to leave the shrine up, because I think it's kind of beautiful, actually.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a, I guess, habit or practices. I finished my daily practice on the cushion and dedicate merit.
Yeah.
And then I would say, okay, I'm going back to samsara now, but I'll be back tomorrow. And so in the meantime, right, please help me practice virtue and tame my mind, and above all else, do no harm. Because I just thought, it's kind of cute, and it helps me remember why I'm doing that and what to do. But recently, as I was finishing practice, I had this thought, which is how silly this is, right? How silly
Correct.
this concept of
Right.
meditation and post-meditation, because
Yep.
life is meditation, right?
That's it.
Yeah, and it made me think, like, I need to stop thinking of it that
Yeah.
way and just think of life that way. And the key to living life in a meditative style would be just, really harnessing that mindfulness and
Exactly.
awareness in every day. And I just didn't know if you had any thoughts about that, particularly as it relates to, as we talked about transitioning from like a formal seating practice
Yeah.
to now having your normal daily experiences in life.
Right. I'm really, really, thank you for sharing this story, because you're not the only person who has said that to me over the years, where they see their cushion over here and samsara over here. And, it's really, but it's fascinating to me. And I'm really glad that you're having second thoughts about that approach, because it doesn't really match with what one of the teachers said to us, which is, try to bring some of your awareness into your everyday practice. So that'd be the first thing. That piece of advice came from His Eminence Taisita Rinpoche, one of the higher lamas of our tradition. He was teaching a Mahamudra class, and he said the problem is that people pop up out of their seats very impulsively, ready to go on to the next thing in their day. He said, but I really want you to think about being very deliberate about your arising from meditation and then attempting to bring it to your everyday experience. And so I think that's probably going to be your better approach. You can still dedicate your merit at the end of your, dedicate the goodness of your practice and say, by doing this practice, may all beings benefit, and may I find the way to merge this with my everyday life. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the Great Path of Awakening. The man who translated this, I met him in California a number of years ago, and he said that this very simple book that was written in Tibetan, I'm going to say 10th century, probably 12th century. He said it's really genius. He said because what mind training does, he says, is it takes the attentiveness that you develop, the mindfulness, that you develop in quiet sitting meditation, you develop this mindfulness in quiet sitting, and he said, and it puts it into the service of virtue. He said, because, the main practice of this book is to wish for the benefit of all beings. It's a very simple practice.
Yeah.
May I benefit every person I see today. May because so when I wake up in the morning, in the spirit of this, I say to myself, may everything I do today benefit beings in some way, which means even if I do something that's not quite right, or I'm not perfect, or whatever, or if I make a mistake, whatever, may that eventually bring about benefit for all beings. So even if I look like a fool today, even if I make a complete fool of myself, may that be of benefit to someone. And that's the kind of thinking that the translator, Ken MacLeod, said. He said the mindfulness goes into the service of developing your compassionate heart, always. It just keeps expanding. Your mindfulness then allows you to think of compassion. He said at first it's kind of fake, it's kind of artificial compassion, but he said over time it becomes genuine. And so he called this, he called it mindfulness plus. It sounds like one of those streaming services on TV. Mindfulness plus, it's mindfulness plus the development of a virtuous mind. the expansion of the bodhisattva motivation. So gradually, you expand your bodhisattva motivation to fill every open space in your life. So that, and in his translator's introduction, he said that even even mundane things can become Dharma if you do this practice. And I'm trying to, here it is. He said, when our clinging to self is strong, we do not surrender it easily or willingly, and our attempts at compassion and to use compassion and intelligence are clumsy and usually cause us regret or guilt. However, if we understand that ego is a sham or it's a fiction, we made it up, that the self we cling to is in fact not a thing at all, and we become familiar with the habit of letting go of our own interest in a situation, we get used to letting go of our own interest in a situation, any given situation, right? We become more capable of surrendering ego, just as we are able to throw away without regret an old sweater that never fit us anyway. This understanding and familiarization are developed in the sitting meditation that employs the techniques discussed in this work. He said, if our sitting meditation is essential, for it's the only method by which this approach to the world can develop. Yet if our day-to-day actions don't reflect our practice, our meditation is not effective. That is, not only should we become more tolerant, less arrogant, more open and responsive, but we should also feel genuinely at peace with ourselves, naturally happy and cheerful, even in difficult situations. And so he said, consequently, a major part of the book consists of guidelines for meeting ordinary situations in life. I mean, every ordinary situation you can think of is in here. And so he says, for instance, he said, continual practice of meditation and attention to everyday conduct go together. There are two aspects of practice rather than two unrelated activities. For instance, he said, people whose training in this technique is well developed will, whenever they encounter someone who is troubled or in pain, spontaneously imagine that they take on the suffering of that person. When we work with both aspects, the habit of ego clinging fall away, true intelligence and compassion, the realization of non-self and non-referential compassion will arise. So I'm so glad you asked this, because I think we can all benefit from your question in that we all have more that we can do, right? And so that's, I really appreciate you asking about that. Oh my goodness. I ran us down to the bottom of the hour. Okay, this will be the last question. Yeah. Yeah. Take it easy. Yeah. Yeah, this is good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Lama Kathy. It's good
Yeah.
to see you.
Yeah.
I have a completely unrelated question.
I
and
love
that's why I
unrelated
waited
questions.
till last.
Yeah.
Do non-human sentient beings go to the bardo?
I want to make sure I heard you. I get my hearing aids this week, everybody. Yay! So if you could creep up to the microphone
Sure.
and ask that last part.
Do non-human sentient beings go to the bardo?
Yeah, do non-human sentient beings experience the bardo? And I believe the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
But they will not be able to interpret it.
Okay.
Because it depends on their level of capacity to understand what's happening.
Okay. So like they won't have the ability to become enlightened.
Technically, if a person has not had training in how to work, see, what we're talking about here is the word bardo in Tibetan means in between. And it speaks of, there are four different bardos. There's the bardo of this life, there's the bardo of dying, there's the bardo of clear light, and then there's the bardo of becoming. So those are the four main ones that are talked about, although you can talk about 6 too, but I don't even remember what they are. But anyway, but you can break bardos down in between spaces, right? And we're like right now we're in a bardo, we just call it the bardo of this life, and so forth. And so the questioner is asking if beings who are not human also experience the after-death bardos, the clear light, and yes, and the answer is because all beings have Buddha nature, they do experience these things, but their ability to interpret it is going to depend on many factors.
Okay.
Okay, so.
All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's really something, you know, we have to, yeah, it's just, and this is why compassion is so important, right? Because not everybody has our experience. And so, but yeah, they experience it. That's what Rinpoche said. Because one of the questions that came, one of the ways that this question's come up in the past, somebody said, do like Christians experience the bardo? And he said, oh yeah, he said if they're human beings, they experience the bardo pretty much the same way, but how they interpret it will probably be different. Well, because of time, we'll have to. I thought I was going to give a short talk today, but I let Ken do some talking for me. It's just that when I read those things today, it just kind of made me happy. So, okay, so we'll gather together all of the goodness that we've put together here, and we're going to dedicate it to all sentient beings, and particularly all the beings in the world right now who are suffering in one way or another. May this uplift them and be of benefit to them. And because of time, we'll just recite it once in English. And we'll start with the words, by this merit. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Okay, thanks everyone. If anybody wants to come up and look at the shrine, I can hang out for about 15 minutes here after. And I think the room is set the way it needs to be set for the rest of the week, so I think you can leave the cushions as they are for today. Okay, thanks.